Welcome back to another talk, and we are entering into a new series called Vibes. I'm extremely excited to jump into this series, as well as I hope last week you enjoyed our interview with Nathan and Christina. We had such an amazing chat. If you didn't watch it, go ahead and check it out on our IGTV or on our YouTube. We are back to posting on Sunday mornings, which I'm really excited about. So no matter when you're viewing this, we post them on Sunday mornings, but whether it's morning, afternoon, or night, welcome. We are jumping into a series called Vibes, and so we're going to jump right in. What comes to your mind when you think of the word control? I'm just going to give you a second to think. What comes to your mind when you think of the word control? Well, I don't know about you, but what really comes to my mind is someone that is strung out, just like trying to control everything and just kind of going crazy and almost boiling over. It's like, so when I think of the word control, I think of someone kind of clenching their fists. And I think at the end of the day, like, no one wants to be controlled. There's like a negative connotation with the word control, and none of us want to be controlled. It's really kind of an awful feeling. And if I'm honest, and I bet you feel controlled quite often. I mean, I remember being in high school, and especially now with COVID, I bet you feel controlled more than actually a lot of other people or demographics, partly because whether it's curfews, driving restrictions, school attendance policies, not being able to hang out with your friends, or not being able to hang out with friends at all, you, out of most people, feel controlled. And not to mention all these COVID restrictions where no matter who you are, you're controlled with where you can and can't go often because things are shut down or policies are put in place or masks have to be worn, whatever it might be, you definitely feel controlled. And I'm here to say that, man, I feel for you. I resonate with that in regards to, my heart kind of breaks for you in the fact that you probably feel very controlled. But here's the deal. As much as you and I don't like to be controlled, all of us are. And we may not say this out loud or totally think, well, Caden, I'm not controlled by everything. But I would argue that we're all controlled in some way or another by our emotions, our moods, and or our vibes. You and I both know that you could be just having a weird, funky day, and that feeling or that emotion controls your every move or the way you act to your family or your friends or your parents or just how you feel in that day. Those moods, those emotions tend to control. And I'm super guilty of this. I'm a person who is very emotional. There's a lot going on with COVID and family. Some family wants to hang out, others don't. And I can quickly let emotions fuel my behavior. And it can be, in some ways, it's a good thing. But in a lot of ways, if those emotions get out of control, I can say and act and do things that I don't really mean. And so let's take a second here to think about what is one main negative emotion that really kind of controls or takes over you or is kind of the boss of you. Is it anger? Is it anxiety? Maybe jealousy, loneliness, sadness, guilt? What is one of these negative emotions that tends to control or take control of you? Now, thinking about those, I'm sure you found ways to monitor or kind of regulate how you deal with these emotions, but they still are a huge controlling factor in your life. Well, guess what? I have some exciting news. Jesus invites us into a life where we go beyond just monitoring or trying to control our emotions. And if what he says is true, it has the potential to actually set you and I free from being controlled by our emotions. And man, just even saying the word free or thinking of freedom or being free gets me excited. And I think at the end of the day, so many of us want to be free. So in Mark 7 here, this passage begins with Jesus and his disciples, or you could call it his 12 closest friends, his crew that he rolls around with. And in Mark 7, verse 5, it says here, this is the Pharisees, why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders instead of eating their food with defiled hands? Essentially, the Pharisees are mad at the disciples for not washing hands before eating, which, yes, sounds crazy in this world where we wash our hands all the time, and yes, sounds kind of gross, but you have to remember that back in that day, water was extremely, extremely scarce, and you didn't want to waste it by pouring it all over your hands necessarily. And so here the Pharisees are just really trying to be nitty gritty and attack Jesus and the disciples. And this is what Jesus does. The Pharisees are trying to catch them sinning or to get them in trouble. And Jesus so brilliantly quotes the prophet Isaiah in response to the Pharisees saying this. And he says, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. As it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but with their hearts they are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teaching are merely human rules. And then Jesus goes on to make it very clear for the disciples and for those listening. You have let the commands of God and are holding on to human tradition. So you have let go of the commands of God and you're holding on to human traditions. And so in other words, Jesus is saying, you're not trying to lead my people closer to God. You're looking to keep your power over my people. Meaning, like, we aren't in conflict with God over something that we ate or put into our bodies. But the fact is, in other words, Jesus is saying, you're not trying to lead me closer to God. You're trying to keep your power and control over them. And Jesus continues. This is kind of where he focuses. Listen, Mark 7, verses 14 through 15. Listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside of a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them. This reality that we're not in conflict with God because of what we put in our mouths or what we eat, but we're in conflict with God when we say or speak ill against anyone else because God loves everyone. Those emotions we monitor that can get the best of us, Jesus continues with, for it is within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. And man, I just find that so true. These negative emotions that can overtake us and have us do things that, man, we don't want to do. We're not really about. And I'll never forget, my mom has said to me growing up over and over, and I think this phrase is so powerful and so true. Don't let your emotions fuel your intellect. Man, it's such great advice. Thinking about, don't let your emotions fuel your intellect. Don't let your emotions make you do something your mind knows is the wrong thing to do. Don't let your emotions fuel your intellect. Such great advice, but in the heat of the moment, what's maybe a practical way we can actually put ourselves at ease? And this is a tactic, a trick that I use often, like maybe sometimes daily, that I want to impose on you. And maybe you've heard about it. It's something the Navy SEALs use. So if the Navy SEALs use it, it's got to be pretty amazing. And it's this breathing technique. So the next time you find your emotions start to boil over, try this with me. What you're going to do is you're going to breathe in for 5 seconds, hold that breath for 5 seconds, and then release that breath for 5 seconds. So try it with me. Already makes me feel more calm, helps lower your heart rate, and maybe just in the moment of your emotions boiling over, it helps you just calm down before you react negatively. It helps you pause, take a breath, and think about how you might react, or maybe it's just your feelings overtaking your intellect. If you're a Jesus follower, emotions are definitely not meant to control or be the boss of you. And Jesus says in Matthew, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And he says in John, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." So in other words, bring all of these emotions to the feet of Jesus. Let him be the boss of your emotions. He's a way better boss than you and I will ever be. Because of Jesus, emotions don't have to be the boss over you. And the last question I want to give you is, how would your life look different, or how would your life be if you and the people around you didn't let your emotions boss your life? If you allowed Jesus to be the boss of your life, how would your life look different? So instead, make Jesus the boss of your life. We'll see you next week.